Hey, welcome back to The Current. This is Pastor Chris Nafis of Living Water Church, and today I'm delighted to have Stephen Hughes join me. He is the director of St. Peter's Youth Center in Lower Falls community in Belfast, Northern Ireland. We got to visit it when I was in Northern Ireland earlier this summer, and he's doing profound work among the youth in this place that is historically one of the touch points, the flashpoints of the violence and the division in Northern Ireland. He, for 13 years in this place and for 42 years, has been doing youth work in Northern Ireland, helping to raise a generation that's ready for peace and that is being transformed by love and hope and ready to build a new community and a new life for themselves and for their neighbors. I hope that you find this conversation inspiring, especially in the midst of increasingly divided country in our own context. Here it is. All right. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for spending a little time just talking to me about what's going on there in Belfast. Appreciate you being here with me at all.
Pleasure, Chris.
So a lot of our folks, I just mentioned this before I hit record, but a lot of our folks may not know a ton about like the history of the Troubles and the history of Belfast. Can you tell me a little bit about your neighborhood and what led to kind of the context that you're in now?
Well, I'm the youth worker in charge of what is a small charitable or not-for-profit organization um, that works with young people from 6 to 25 years of age.
Hmm.
We are the church's outreach to the young people of Lower Falls, and Lower Falls is a small community, right on the edge of Belfast city centre, the main shopping hub of Belfast. Um, we're a community that has been impacted quite severely by the conflict that took place in Ireland. It is where the violence began in 1969 in Belfast, here in Lower Falls. It's also a community that is segregated. We have a large peace wall, which is sort of 30 foot high, that segregates two Christian communities.
Hmm.
But on one side of the wall, we have people who want Ireland to be united, to be an all-Irish island again. And on the other side of the wall, we have people who want to retain Northern Ireland as part of Britain.
Hmm.
So politically, the two communities are divided, but we are in the main a Christian community together.
Hmm.
And it's a community that has a legacy of violent conflict, political conflict. It's a community that has hundreds of years of legacy related issues that are economic issues, mainly poverty. For example, in 1903, Carnegie came over from the United States, Scottish industrialist, made his money in America, came here, and he was impacted by the poverty that he seen. And he built three libraries, one here in Lower Falls, one in another community, a unionist community not far from here, in the Donegal Road, and one in Old Park Road in North Belfast. And those were the three most impoverished communities in 1904 when the three libraries were opened. Still to this day, 120 years later, they remain three of the most impoverished communities. So in 1972, this community was the most impoverished community in Europe, not even in Ireland or the UK, but in Europe.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm sure that made a contribution to the issues we had around the conflict.
Yeah. Those political, one of the things that's interesting to see there when we came, because we came in not really, we read up and I kind of learned a little bit about the history and things, but didn't, it's different to be there and kind of see it. But how that political divide is still very much alive, right? Like people still have strong feelings about their different political preferences in terms of what state to be loyal to, what republic, that kind of thing.
I I'm conflicted by that sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, I think there's a couple of generations who hold on to the past and to the violence of the past and to the prejudice and hate associated with the past. Um, I think in the work that I do with children and young people, I think the young people are moving on from that.
Yeah.
We're seeing a new generation coming through that don't want that baggage of the conflict, and they're looking for something different.
Yeah.
And I think the young people that we work with, they keep they keep saying to us, "This is your problem," as in my generation.
Yeah.
This is we don't want that. That's like leave that with yous, and we're going to have a different life. And I think that's potentially the future. The future is that when our generations die off, hopefully we'll have a more pluralist, interdependent, and respectful society. Um, the divisions that remain in Northern Ireland at the moment tend to be in communities where you're seeing poverty, where you're seeing the socio-economic issues, driving fear, and suppose depending on the hurt and pain of the past to keep communities apart.
Yeah.
So it's a very yeah, the youthful element of our society are moving on and want something different, but there's like a couple of generations that are still there that keep dragging us back to the past. And it also suits some of our politicians as well. Like so
Right.
our politicians can sometimes can exploit that fear for their own political interests, and that sometimes frustrates me really badly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But um, in the communities where I work, they are great communities. They're cultured, they're caring, they're compassionate. They want to help each other, they want to grow, and they want something different. They want something better for their children and young people, which I love to see, and I think that's what keeps me going in the job.
Yeah, well, and that's a big part of what you've been working towards for years now, right? How long have you been doing this?
I've been here. Well, this is I'm getting into my 13th year now
Okay.
in this community, but I've been a youth worker now. It's my 42nd year. And I've always worked, well, the majority of the time I've worked in communities that have been impacted by the conflict.
Yeah.
Are communities that have been dealing with complex and legacy issues. Um, I've never worked in a bad community. I've
Yeah.
never left a community and went, no, I really don't ever want to go back there. So my youth work here, I suppose initially I was told, don't do this, don't go there, because the community had such a bad reputation. But once I got into the community and met the people, engaged the young people, I suddenly found that this is not a bad community at all. It's just misunderstood.
Hmm.
And also it was a community that had really complex issues
Hmm.
and baggage from the past that held young people back, And I
Yeah.
think once we helped young people understand and do their own analysis and their own interpretation, because um, we don't help educate young people in that way. We support young people to make better decisions themselves through their own education. But I think our young people, um, once they got the opportunity to examine and explore some of the issues, you find quickly that they are smart and they can move on, and
Yeah.
and we see a lot of that now today.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our context too, you see a lot of people frustrated with certain people groups. So in my context, a lot of folks that are experiencing homelessness and on the street, and people very frustrated about, behaviors like the way that those folks kind of present to the rest of the community. But it's really a lack of understanding the difficulties and the challenges that they face that creates all of that kind of reputation and stuff. Is that kind of what you're saying with the youth in your
Yeah,
context?
I'm finding one of the big challenges that I'm finding at the moment is young people being exploited
Mm,
for other people's political agenda. and whether that be um, political hatred. We're seeing a significant rise in the far right and far
Hmm.
right thinking. Fascist organizations who blame black and brown people are, to be honest, they blame everybody but themselves. They take no responsibility for um, their own role in society. So it's easier to point the finger. That can be political and it can be personal and economic gain by some people. You know, we're seeing people in the UK who are replicating some of the issues that we're seeing in the United States at the moment. So that that fear is used um, to exploit children and young people into an education that's really not honest or true. And I
Hmm.
suppose our job is to help young people work through that.
Yeah.
You know, help understand what's happening to them, see when they're being and realize when they're being exploited, are misinformed, or are manipulated. Um, I think that's one of our big challenges at the moment is around that issue of fear of black and brown people,
Yeah.
that leads to hatred, that leads to discrimination. You know, it's brutal. Um,
Yeah.
and it's new to us here in Northern Ireland and in Ireland in general. Um, we think we have a huge, big problem with new immigrant communities. It's less than 3% of our population,
Mm.
do you know? So we
Yeah.
are still a very white, majority white Christian conservative society, do you know? But when you listen to some of the messages that young people are being fed, and in Ireland in particular, we have some awful people who are exponents of that fear manifestation and that hatred of black and brown people. But it's normally for you when you watch it and you follow the money, it's normally self-interest, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is.
So how do you cut through that? I mean, we're wrestling with the same things here, where there's kind of propaganda type stuff coming from all multiple different directions, and trying to figure out how to help people discern like what's true and what's manipulative. I don't know. Have you figured anything out?
For us, it's time and space.
Yeah.
Conversation. Our organization is um, all of our interventions tend to be dialogical. So it's sitting down with young people and providing that safe space to have really contentious conversations.
Hmm.
Do you know where they can say um, what they're feeling, what they're hearing, what they're believing. Um, they can say that in a safe space. But our job in youth services is to improve self-awareness, to use reflective practice and challenge to make them think about what it is they're saying and why they're saying it. Um, I just feel that maybe we're maybe not spending enough time on the issues of ethnicity and identity, but we have some really great pieces of work that have helped. Like we've a really great project here in Ireland at the moment called Black and Irish, which is absolutely wonderful at challenging some of that old rhetoric that's coming around. Um, but we also have a really good partnerships with our new ethnic communities that support the young people, the black and brown young people who use our project, you know, because it's a safe space for them.
Yeah.
And no matter what you are, who you are, what your abilities are, what your sexual orientation, what your background is, this is a safe space for children and young people. Um, we 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 it's one of our core ethics, you know. So even when young people are being fed this misinformation and some of the rhetoric that they're hearing through social media, it's a place for them to have those conversations.
Yeah, so just creating a space for it and having the
Yeah,
conversations and the encounters. I mean, what you shared with us when we were there was a lot about, we were talking more about the old divide, right? The wall division,
Mm.
and how a big part of what you all were doing was just really intentionally helping people forge friendships with people on the other side of the wall, right? And that was like a big part of the healing. I mean, maybe can you share a little bit about like your locate like the youth organization, the youth center, and like specifically what you all are doing? Because maybe I jumped the gun there a
Well,
little bit.
yeah, I'm trying to provide a geographical image in
Yeah.
your listeners' heads. Um, we are either side of a main road.
Hmm.
So we're on this side of the road, which is the pro-Irish nationalist Catholic community. On directly, just at this side of the building here, is a large 30-foot wall that
Right.
segregates us from another Christian community on the other side of the wall, which is mainly Protestant, mainly Unionist, and mainly Loyalist. These are two of the most impoverished communities in the country
On both sides.
on both sides. Yep.
Yeah.
They are two communities that have been significantly hurt during the conflict. It's
Right.
probably where the majority of people who have either died, they've either been victims of the conflict or perpetrators of the conflict, either side of that. They are complex. The complexities are poverty, poor housing, poor health, poor education, um, higher than average crime rates. So they're very, very complex communities.
Right.
And all too often, they the gates close. So I can walk now. What time is it? Yeah, it's almost 6 p.m. here. I can walk through to my friend and colleague on the other side, Ruth, who runs Townsend Street Youth Centre. That's my partner group. And we work together on everything. I can walk there until 7 o'clock. At 7 o'clock, the gates close automatically, and I then have to take a detour through Belfast city centre to get to her building, which is 100 meters away.
Hmm.
So it becomes complex. But that segregation is not just it's it doesn't happen in the majority of communities. It happens in a small number. It's probably about 90 communities have these walls that segregate them. Our wall is the longest segregation wall outside of Israel Palestine.
Mm.
And it goes from Belfast city centre to the mountain. It's about 8 miles.
Okay.
Yeah. And it keeps the two communities apart. And we call them peace walls. So the idea is that the walls keep people from fighting and being violent with each other. I would I don't ever recall or don't ever call them peace walls. I call them segregation walls
Mm.
because that's ultimately what they do. They keep communities apart. Now, I don't live in this community where I work. I get into my car and I drive home. I'm about 8 miles out the road, and I live in a mixed community.
Hmm.
My next door neighbor is not of my tradition or my politics. But why do we not have a wall segregating us? Do you know? We're
Yeah.
both Christian. We have different traditions, different faiths, different politics. But why do we not need a wall to segregate us in our community? So
Yeah.
to me, there's something different in the community that I work in, and that to me, the manifestation of what we see in this community is poverty.
Yeah.
There's also um, the closer you live to the wall, the more impoverished you are
Hmm.
as a family. You tend to be more unemployed, so you're benefit dependent, or what do you call them, food stamp. You're food stamp dependent. You're unhealthier. The closer you live to the wall, that's mental health, physical health, emotional health.
Hmm.
You are more prone to crime. You know, you're less. You underachieve in education. So the opportunities for achievement in education are less, and as a result, then employment are less. So um, it's a self-perpetuating environment.
Yeah.
So it is. So, but the walls people, it's funny, we do we have a leadership program every year, where we take 20 young leaders and we work with them. We do an environmental audit. We send them out into the community to do an audit of what the big environmental issues are in the community. And I've done that now 4 years, and not once have the young people come back and said the walls are an environmental issue.
Hmm.
They'll talk about air pollution, they'll talk about lack of green space, they'll talk about all the issues, graffiti, fire lighting, all the normal sort of environmental issues that you get it.
Right.
But they don't see the walls. They don't understand that the walls, this wall that segregates these two communities, has a serious environmental, economic, social impact on their lives
Right.
because they're so used to it. It's just normalized in
Mhm.
society. So the walls to me are the single biggest issue after poverty.
Yeah. Well, because
So
it's symbolic too, right? Like there's this symbolism of a past. I mean, I don't know if you'd call it past, but like this past conflict that the older generations, as you said, are carry. I mean, there's living memory of people who have been murdered and real serious violence, and the young people don't have that living memory in the same way as the older generations, but the remnants of it in terms of like trauma, in terms of the messaging that they're getting from probably from parents, family members, big older folks in the community, and then from this visible physical thing that's like dividing their community is still very much a part of their life, but it's just so normalized. I don't know. Yeah, is that part of what do you think just helping people just actually come to see it, the part of the self-awareness that you're talking about and helping
there
people
there
grow
is
beyond?
there most definitely is a peace dividend. Excuse me.
Mhm.
There's most definitely a peace dividend from the walls. And there's almost like a tourist element now that people come to see the dividing walls, much like many of us did when Berlin's wall came down. We all want to see the parts of the walls that remained.
Yeah.
But I think there's a problem with that. The problem is in this process, apart from the conflict in Belfast beginning in this community, so also did the peace process.
Mm.
Jerry Adams, John Hume, and Father Alec Reid, when they first met in this community in Clonard Monastery, to talk about how they brought an end to the political violence, also began in this community. So there is an appetite for something that's different. There is an appetite in this community for a new order as
Hmm.
such. So they they the community, this community in the end voted for the ceasefire in 1994 and voted for the Belfast Agreement and all subsequent agreements that have came forward. This community has continued to support them, even though the community itself has had very little benefit or dividend as a result of the peace process. I think it's only now, and it's probably two generations now. We're 27 years after the ceasefire of 1998. We're not we still haven't moved on.
Mm.
And I think one of the big problems in the whole process is that we've never actually reconciled each other as two communities in conflict.
Mm.
And I think that and it's not a lack of compassion as such, but it's recognition of the hurt that we done on each other
Mm.
and taking ownership over that hurt and then like amending or apologizing and bringing some reconciliation to that process. And I think until we do that, and I think about Ramsbottom's book, Contemporary Conflict Resolution. He talked about reconciliation being almost like a camel's hump.
Hmm.
And in Northern Ireland terms, that the pinnacle of that hump is reconciliation.
Mm.
And 27 years after the conflict, 27 years of ceasefire, we still haven't made that stage yet. So there's still a journey ahead. And I really hope and pray that it comes in our generation, but I suspect it's going to fall to our children
Yeah. Yeah.
to take us through that process.
Well, and you're doing the work to help bring that about, right? So what is it, all that's kind of the background of what you're actually doing, but what you're actually doing is welcoming a bunch of like loud, rambunctious kids, energetic kids into the youth center to play games. And, you guys have like ping pong and video games and all kinds of fun stuff that you guys do. You go on and have events. And I've seen videos of you guys doing giant, slip and slide type things. Like, well, what are you all doing? What are you doing?
The fun activities that you talk about are very normal growing up, games and activities and fun that normal society and normal peer groups of children should have.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really what we're about. What we're about is a relational based service. I think about communities that have been impacted by trauma and violence, are fearful and mistrusting of difference.
Yeah.
So what we want to try and do here is using the relationship with the adult youth worker is to take young people through a life journey. And we use a social pedagogue model. So the youth worker walks beside the young person as they make decisions in life. So we put them into, and I tell my young people, I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm going to put you in uncomfortable situations so that you learn from them. I'm going to help you reflect. I'm going to help you self-analyze and become more self-aware. I'm going to give you experiences that are going to broaden your horizons, that are going to test your faith, that are going to challenge everything about you. Your fears, your mistrusts, your hatred, your prejudice, all of those things are going to be challenged by the experiences that we provide. And to be fair, the work that we do with Ruth in Townsend Street across the divide, has it's almost like graded in terms of the learning objectives. The little ones, the sort of 7 to 11 year olds, there's only one objective, Chris. And that objective is to make a friend on the other side of that wall. That's all I want my kids to do. Have experience of people who are of different faith, who are of different political opinion, who are different status or ability or whatever, and just make a friend. Just
Yeah.
have someone who you can say, my friend Charlie lives on the shingle.
Mm-hmm.
And just in doing that, playing games together, having fun together, they suddenly begin to realize Charlie's not different from me.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Charlie's very, very like me. And maybe very different to someone of a different economic status. And then it grows as they get into we call it the pre-teens, that sort of 12 to 14 years. We up the learning objectives, and we start involving some of the more contentious issues around identity and faith and politics, and then when they go from the 14 to 17 years, it gets very deep and heavy in terms of social justice, citizenship, civic responsibility, civic identity, and then social action. What is it you do? And that's why we call it the ambassadors program. We ask of our older young people, what's your contribution? What sort of a community do you want for your children? Do you want segregation? Do you want your children to grow up with hate and prejudice and discrimination and violence? And the kids don't want that.
Mm-hmm.
They want better than what we had, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah.
So the program grows with age, and it is successful. Like, we know it is changing. It's impacting violence. It's impacting attitudes. It's impacting knowledge. It's impacting moral character. It's impacting faith. So all of these things are they're all improvements in the lives of our children and young people. And sometimes our because they're quite young, they still don't process this. And sometimes it can take years for this
Mm-hmm.
to embed. And I can tell you a story. We were at a recent, a little bit of violence had erupted at the wall, and me and a couple of colleagues on either side of the wall went to that It's Lanark Way gates. It's not far from here. And we went to the gates to try and break the groups of young people up from getting involved in violence. Now, the violence hadn't erupted, but the young people moved. They're quite shrewd. They have WhatsApp chat rooms. Well, they'll go, right, the youth workers here, so we'll move somewhere else. And they moved up the road. But two of my youth workers followed the group up the road, and I stayed at the gates. I was on my own. There was nobody else here. And suddenly, this car pulls in beside me, very quickly startled me. And I went, what's this? And the window came down. And it was a grown adult. It was a man, father of three children, who I'd worked with a number of years earlier. And he shouts out the window, "Hey, you still doing this?" I says, "I am, Joseph. We're still trying." And he went, "Thank God," he says, because I have some great friends on this side of the wall now because of you.
Well,
So we know it works. Do you know,
yeah.
we have seen relationships develop. We've seen attitudes change. We've seen behaviors change. And I think young people have moved on from my generation who continue to carry the experiences of the past. Um, and hopefully what we will see is something new in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, where do you find the challenge? So like you talk about the younger kids, the first level kids coming in, just the only goal is just to make another friend. Do they find that easy to do once they're actually put in that situation? Is that what are the challenges?
I'll go and tell you another story. So we brought the groups together back. Our program starts every September.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought the groups together here in this youth center in September. There was about 30 sort of 7 to 10-year-olds who we do game sessions, icebreakers, drama starters, that sort of thing. We had them all playing games, getting them introduced, playing name games, having fun. And these two little lads, 10 years of age, clearly did not like each other.
Mm-hmm.
The language was the language was let's just say it was pretty fluid, and pretty abusive. Ended up in a fist fight. I mean, the two of them knocked the rump out of each other. Staff jumped in, got them apart, tried to talk to them, blah blah. Nothing was working. They just hated each other. They called each other all the bad names of each all the day. Yeah, that was it. We sort of went, right, that's it. That's a mess. We're not going to get these two groups together. We're not going to get these two groups. But we persevered. These two kids now are the best of friends. These two kids now stay in each other's houses. Their parents have chat rooms where they talk. Are you dropping them over this weekend? Or we staying with you? And they go away on trips together. Two of them are the best of friends. The two kids were very, very alike and come from very, very similar backgrounds and similar families. So sometimes it just takes a wee bit of perseverance. That was a difficult situation at the start of the Little Ones project.
Yeah.
The opposite happened this year with the older ones. So the older ones this year, we brought them together in July. We had our initial session, which was telling the young people what the project. This is 14 to 17-year-olds. We were telling them what the project looks like, what's going to be involved, what techniques we use. We're not going to make them feel comfortable, etc. And we took them away on residential. Took them away for the weekend to a camp. And we were worried after the previous experience with the little ones. We were worried that this is going to be difficult because older teenagers, they can be a bit more toxic in terms of their belief system and their experiences. And it was the opposite, Chris. We are still talking about it as workers. Now it's only a few months in, but we're still talking about how well this worked, how successful it was, how quickly they developed relationships, how quickly they trusted each other. They now come in and out of each other's communities. They're organising their own events and their own activities in Belfast city centre. And to us, this was done without, I mean, any hindrance, any barriers. It was like I'm still shocked. I know we're only a couple of months in. I'm still shocked by it.
Yeah.
Do you know? We still have the teenage tantrums. We still have huffiness. We had an incident last night. We were on the peace line last night, with a group talking about the impacts of the peace wall. And there was a bit of a tantrum last night. So there was, but it was an internal tantrum by a small group of young women,
Mm.
do you know, and had really nothing to do with the bigger good relations or cross community contact. It was just some young women had a fallout with each other, but it manifested itself in the group last night. That group is absolutely shocking us how well and how quickly the group has got on together, and
Yeah.
it makes it actually makes the work exciting going forward,
Yeah.
because you don't know where this group's going, because we've started introducing some of the contentious issues. So we talk about identity. We've already started that. We're talking about definitions of sectarianism, power, oppression, discrimination. We've now entered in. We've an element of the program called exposure, where the young people get exposed to the more contentious issues. So they have to meet faith leaders, the two Christian traditions, the Protestant and Catholic traditions. So they have to meet faith leaders. They have to meet police. They have to meet ex-combatants, people who hated each other, a British soldier, a loyalist paramilitary, and a Republican paramilitary. They have to meet the victims, and what's the fifth one? Oh, and peacebuilders.
Mm.
So that element of the program is called exposure, and it's almost like a truth share type situation, where young people have it's a very open and safe environment. The workshop facilitators who come and deliver on the themes, they know that the young people have the opportunity to ask any questions.
Mm.
Nothing's off the table. And now you get some questions that are more interesting than others, you
Sure.
know. But um, it's a process, and some of that I think it excites me going forward. How well this group has gelled as a friendship group. What might be the potential in them, in them working through the workshops, better understanding the concepts of sectarianism and what it looks like and how it manifests itself in our society. It's exciting.
And do you feel like that's a big change just generationally from like when you first came here 13 years ago or when you first started doing this work 40 years ago? You know what I mean? Like is that
Man,
evolution of the conflict is
it's fun. It's really funny you asked that question, because um I'm here 13 years, and I think we're in a transition period here at the moment. For the first 13 years, for the first 5 years, um nobody supported the organization. Nobody supported the work. Nobody trusted anybody in the organization. Um, and to be fair, we were attacked. My car was attacked. We received death threats. All of those sorts of things happened in the first sort of 4 or 5 years. In the subsequent 8 years, we have not that we've wore down the community, but I think we've proved to the community that we're here for the best interests of the young people,
yeah.
and that has changed. And we funny, the staff team were away at the start of September talking about this very subject, and we believe we're in a transition period. So for the previous 13 years, everything that we've been doing has been reactionary, firefighting, responding to critical situations, whether it be death or suicide or overdoses or interface violence, whatever it may be. We've had to respond. So child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation. But now we're in a place where we're not having to be as reactionary anymore, and we can be a wee bit more proactive.
Mm.
So we're in a place now where we're being very specific about what the critical needs of the young people are, and how we can ensure that we remove those barriers to young people becoming better citizens, or are healthier and better well-being, more resilient, better educated, whatever it may be. But that's where we are at the moment.
Mm.
So we're being a wee bit more um, better planned, more focused and intentional, um, less reactionary, and more proactive. that sort of excites me. I think we can be much more effective.
Yeah, so no longer just like crisis to crisis, one thing to the
Yeah,
next. You're now able to do like formative work at a deep level that's actually kind of getting to the identity and the and kind of the heart of the children, the youth, so that they can be made into people that are more in line with peace and justice and love
yeah,
and those kind of things. Man, yeah, it's
100%.
beautiful. Is that, organizationally, like you guys have kind of learned how to do this better, or like what do you how do you attribute that?
Well, yeah. To be honest, Chris, I've had a lot of. I was involved with a program about 15 years ago, run by the American government. It's a program called AMBIT, and it was run through the International Fund for Ireland. And what it done is it brought young leaders. Well, maybe more than 15 years ago. It brought all these leaders together, or potential leaders together. When they brought us to the United States, so we spent a bit of time in Newark, spent a bit of time in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. Friends that I made for life. Um, I'll probably say engaged, without saying married, to an organization in Pittsburgh called Amazade. So it's Amazade. So it's a Portuguese word for friendship. Guy called Brandon Blanche Cohen. And Amazade, our relationship began to flourish. We began to look at um, why we do the work, how we do the work. And they introduced a couple of new concepts to us. One of which is strength-based youth work. It's a theoretical intervention that was designed by a South Dakota professor called Larry Bentrow. And that changed not just my analysis or my understanding of what was happening in my own work, but it changed my values, it changed my ethos, it changed everything about me as a practitioner.
Mm.
And it helped me see that all behavior is communication. It helped me see that um, the person behind the behavior is to be valued and to be loved and to be cared for. And the behavior can be managed and adapted and relearned. Um, Brandon and the team at Amazaji, along with a guy in Newark, Thomas Owens, who's the chief executive of um, Mentor Newark. I think it's called Mentor Newark or New York Mentor. It's like a big brother, big sister type organization in Newark. Um, how he dealt with education and learning taught me an awful lot. That we attended their church services in Newark, um, and it was a profound experience for me. It was a very understanding, compassionate, caring um, intervention in the lives of children and young people and together these people, along with the learning that we done in the ambit program, sort of changed how I do what I do and why I do what I do. Um a- and I think it has probably um it's probably changed not just my attitude and my thinking, but it changed my very ethos.
Mm.
It changed um my concepts and understanding of faith. And because I grew up in a community that was divided. I grew up in one of the most violent communities in Belfast. So I was full of prejudice and hate and sectarianism. Um, but it taught me something different. As a result, I ended up engaging with much more American groups, in particular university students, and bringing them in to do service in Belfast in different youth clubs.
Mhm.
Um, but I think what these students, I think all youth work teaches you through experience. But I think what it taught me and what it enabled me to share with my children and young people was the frustration that Americans feel when they come into Belfast. Like, how can two Christian communities be so antagonistic and be so hateful? And when really, it's as a society, we just hadn't worked through what sectarianism means. And when we realize that this isn't really about faith, this is a more about power and money, you
Mm-hmm.
know, then it sort of it changes your trajectory and it changes the way you work. It changes who you work with and why you work with them, and I think that has been it's been one of the biggest life lessons for me, and it keeps me focused on why I do what I do, bringing both communities together.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is that like practically speaking, what does the change look like? So like you have, let's say you described or you told a story where you had two kids coming in from different parts of the community, they're yelling at each other in a fist fight with one another. How do you handle that differently than you would have previously or
I think we overcomplicate it, Chris. I really do.
yeah.
Um, these are two kids that were very alike, um, that come from communities that teach each other to hate each other.
Yeah.
So that's what they expected when we brought these two kids along with the two groups together. The expectation is I need to hate them, and we call it Themans syndrome. So THEM-UNS, Themans. So when we teach them that they point fingers at each other, it's Themans. People on the other side of the wall. It's always Themans. But
Hmm.
what we do is we teach them, see these three fingers? When you're pointing at someone else, the three fingers that point back at you.
Hmm.
What about you first? Sort you out first before you start talking about Themans. What's your prejudice? Why do you hate? And we work through that dialogical process of helping kids and young people work through why they believe what they believe
Hmm.
is absolutely critical. And it has to be a safe space. Like we done an exercise a couple of weeks back where we get the young people to put up the names that they call each other. And I mean, there's a lot of prejudice, there's a lot of names and name calling, and the young people. But they don't know why. They don't know what they mean. They don't know why they regurgitate them. It's just normal. And then when you explain how hurtful and prejudicial that name calling is and what impact it can have, they sort of suddenly you can see young people, the penny drops and you can hear them changing. So the terminology changes, the name calling stops, you know, they become a wee bit more empathetic.
Hmm.
They definitely become more compassionate when they hear the stories of family members who've had fathers and grandfathers, grandmothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, all killed in this process, maimed, people left without children or without parents, or brothers or sisters or whatever it may be. When they hear these stories and these stories become real,
Hmm.
it suddenly changes how they understand and interpret sectarianism. So that changes the knowledge base, it changes the attitude, and it changes the behavior.
Yeah.
But more importantly for us, it changes the moral fabric and the character of the young person.
Yeah.
They suddenly become something different, and it's absolutely wonderful to see. That way, I heard it. I heard it last week, and when I heard a young person say, "Please don't say that. You'll upset my friend." So it's not to say it stops entirely because I would be telling you lies. It still happens. We still get rhetoric and we still get young people who repeat words for the sake of repeating them. But we see that growth, we see that progression in their behavior, and then how they sell themselves, how they
Hmm.
market themselves. And I think that's the bit that keeps you going. And we've
Yeah.
had young people that have been severely impacted and severely damaged by the conflict, in our programs, and you can see that change happening. It's what keeps you motivated. It's what keeps you going.
Yeah. So
You
instead of
know, but
seeing, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
and there's other events as well. There's other activities we have a great we have a great uh photographic exhibition in the hall just launched, where they've taken photographs from each community, um, and they're sharing that through the photographic exhibition of little write-ups on that. We're just about to launch a new video, so we are, which is the ambassadors video. It actually goes out tomorrow, so you'll be able to you'll see it on our YouTube channel,
Hmm.
and you'll be able to share some of that with your listeners. Um, young people are working on the interfaces, changing the physical environment, painting in murals, painting out graffiti, litter picking, um, changing the messages on our walls,
Hmm.
changing the language on our walls, um, painting out the hate speech that's on our walls. So they take responsibility for it as well, and they own this process. They make those decisions. They undertake that work. They don't get paid for it.
Hmm.
It's a civic responsibility thing. And I think that's another impact and huge success of the programs that we run.
Yeah. I mean, to what it's, as a pastor and thinking of this in like faith language, it sounds like a discipleship program to me. You know what I mean? Like you're helping
Yeah,
these kids
100%.
find discipline into being better, living into who they really are meant to be instead of the things that the negativity of the world has shaped them to be. And that's kind of what I
I,
hear you saying. Yeah.
I'm really glad to say that, and I'm enthused at the moment by the way our churches are working together.
Hmm.
Because all too often the churches were very segregated during the conflict as well, and they aligned themselves with their own communities. Thankfully, we've got really strong leadership in all of our churches, in all denominations, um, that I think that we're beginning to see the benefit from.
Hmm.
It's a great program for International Peace Day last night, on Sunday night in Farset. And we've seen all the churches coming together, doing wonderful work. Our own church here is working with some of the churches on the Shankill Road, bringing adults together mainly. We tend to do the youth work. They bring adult parishioners together for different events and activities and prayer groups, and um, I love to see that, and I love to see the churches leading from the front,
Hmm.
and leading in a very compassionate and caring manner that is sensitive to people's histories and backgrounds and baggage. Um, but at the same time, providing that leadership for communities going forward. It's absolutely beautiful to watch. And it is discipleship. So it is. It is a Christian duty as such, but it's not one that they need to take on.
Hmm.
They do. They've grasped the nettle, and they're doing that not just well, but I think it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
Um, some of the events taking place. Yeah,
Yeah.
it gives me a bit of faith that we have a future. Do you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's great to hear the hope that's in everything that you're saying and
Mm.
the way that you can envision, even in the midst of poverty and struggle. And, it's not that these kids don't have any issues or something like that, but that there's this open future, not just for the individual youth, but for the community as a whole to kind of create a better life, better community, better world for the next generation and for their adulthood.
And for me, that this is a great fun job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's complex and it's tough sometimes emotionally. I'm getting much older now. I'm not maybe as physically able as what I am in the past. But I have my abilities, and I love the job. I love watching young people achieve. I love seeing them thrive, and I love to see them taking on new opportunities and like a new journey in life.
Hmm.
I think it's the greatest pleasure of this job. It's actually it's a privilege that I have to be in the lives of children and young people. I'm watching that and getting to watch that growth happening. It's an absolute. I say my prayers every day and thank our Lord for giving me that privilege, and hopefully He gives me another day tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks for doing the job. It's inspiring and helpful. It's helpful to be there. It's helpful to hear you kind of tell the stories, and it gives me hope and faith even from, the other side of the world over here and in San Diego to that maybe there's some hope for us. The United States is in a
Yeah.
place that we've reflected often. It feels like we're on the front end potentially of a bad conflict, and hopefully we can take some different routes than the ones that we seem to be on now. But we don't feel like we don't get much good news these days. And so to
Yeah,
hear some from you, it's good.
I feel sorry for my American friends and colleagues. And we have a long-term relationship, as I said, with Newark, with Thomas and Owens and Mentor Newark, with Highlander High School in Rhode Island, who we have an exchange program that happens every year. That's went to the wall now, because of some of the stuff that's happening in terms of the United States travel arrangements.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, our hearts and prayers go out to the American public, that you get some really good leadership, and and hopefully it doesn't go the way that we all think it might go.
Yeah. Any
I
advice for
think
us?
pray.
Yeah.
I always believe in the power of prayer.
Yeah.
Um, I think our churches and our church leaders have a great opportunity, to help take the sting out of some of the politics of hate, the politics of fear, politics of greed.
Yeah.
You know, um, I I've been traveling the United States now for 30 years, and I don't meet what I see on the TV, that what I hear from the media is not the people that I meet when I go to the United States.
Hmm.
I meet um philanthropists, I meet people who are loving and caring and who want to make the world a better place. I just it just worries me sometimes when I hear and say, and don't get me wrong, we have the same problem here.
Sure.
We can see the growth of this hate and fear mongering here in the UK and Ireland and in Europe. Um, I just hope, and I do believe, Chris, there's far more people that are loving, caring, compassionate, empathetic, understanding, helpful, and loving again. Um, I think there's more of us, and we just need to stand up and do what we need to do.
Yeah.
Um, and be that loving, caring society. And I think America will get through this. You
Hmm.
will. So it is, and hopefully we'll not allow this hate to grow in the world. I think there's too many good people out there to allow this to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, appreciate that, and appreciate your example and the inspiration that comes from the work that you have been doing faithfully for so many years now. Any final word, anything you want to share about what you're doing that we
No,
haven't talked
just to,
about?
to thank your listeners for hearing the rambles of an old man. Um, I loved meeting you all when you came across the Ireland, and I hopefully this helps in some way.
Yeah.
All it is a story of a small inner city youth project. Um, yeah, but we believe you change one person, you change the world. You know,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that's what we need to continue to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time and again appreciate everything. Like it was a joy to be there in person, to meet you in person, and really grateful that I got to have another chance to talk to you, ask you some questions.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, thanks for listening. If you find these episodes helpful, share them with somebody, send it to somebody, say, hey, you should listen to this because this is a cool story, or this is an inspiring thing, or this is what I think we need to be doing, or if you hate it, send it to someone and say, I hate this. Can you, tell me, do you hate it too? And then you can
I'm
send
all
me
right with
angry
that too.
emails and send me angry emails and all that. But let's I'm making these so that we can share them. So please share them, hit subscribe or whatever. And more importantly, go out, make a friend on the other side of our divide. Do something good today that can help build you into a better version of yourself, and allow God to shape your life in something that looks like hope and love and justice and joy. Thanks
Amen.
for thanks for joining in. Thanks again, Stephen, and hopefully we'll catch you next time.
The
Thanks, everybody.
kettle's always on, Chris. Next time you're over.
Oh, I'll come get some tea for sure. All
God bless you, sir. See you soon.
right, see you soon.
Bye, everyone.